let's talk about the greatest of all time officially retired, and this will tie into our next subject on misinformation. Wanting to be the first person out with all the info. Obviously, Adam Schefter and Jeff Darlington both kind of came out together and said, per us, Tom Brady's retiring. Tom Brady, other reports are coming out saying Tom Brady hasn't even made a decision. And
Yeah.
then Tom Brady officially released his post this morning. So now it's, there's that closure, probably the same kind of closure that Brett Favre gave, but maybe Tom Brady really will hang up the cleats. But what are your thoughts on not only the greatest of all time retiring? Is it absolutely unanimous? And on top of that, let's talk about misinformation for me too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's obvious, greatest of all time. He's got nothing else to prove now.
Mhm.
I mean, what else? What else does he have to prove at this point? Like, he left, he proved the haters wrong. Left New England, proved it was him, not necessarily Belichick. Not that Belichick's bad; it was both of them. Both can be true, but proved he's the greatest of all time. He won with two different organizations, and then, crazy enough, came back this year when he probably could have retired last year. That would have been really just like retire right on top, right? But came back this year and played at an MVP level and had his top 2 or 3 season of his whole career at age 43 or whatever. Incredible. I mean, and I was listening to some other guys talk about it today, and I think Cowherd was saying it. What makes Brady different and the retirement of Brady different is he is going out with probably still some left in the tank, right? He's not going out because he blew his arm out on the mound like some of these pitchers go out in their 40s and they
Or some of these quarterbacks, namely Peyton Manning, Drew Brees,
like,
Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger.
Ben Roethlisberger limping, basically limping, dragging his dead body onto the field for the past season. Drew Brees not even being able to throw a football at the end of the year, basically. Phillip Rivers. These guys, like, they retire too late. And to go out with the kind of elegance like that is incredible. Even Michael Jordan, like, greatest of all time, one of the greatest athletes of all time. He didn't go out on top. Like,
no.
Jordan with the Wizards.
He struggled with the Wizards, yeah.
Jordan with the Wizards, I mean, come on. Like, he showed glimpses, right? And he had the farewell stuff, And the best part about it is we don't have to sit through some stupid farewell tour of next year, like, the Jeter stuff and, like, the craziness like that. I love Derek Jeter, don't get me wrong. Like, I always respect that guy. I don't think
but he was hitting like 220 in his final year. So
right. Like, it's like, look, guy, like, he was done too. He'd been done for probably 2 or 3 years, right? And he was sticking around. Brady retired. Obviously, like, I think he felt like they, without all the injuries and the craziness with AB and all that stuff, I think he probably felt like they could probably win another Super Bowl. Because fully healthy, I think they might have. I mean, they struggled against the Rams with their health, and they still probably easily could have won that game. With the comeback there. So, in my opinion, he felt like they could have gotten another one. That's why he came back this year, because he just saw the roster and saw everybody coming back, and he was like, "Yeah, we can go do this one more time." So it kind of sucks for him because I think he felt like they were gonna win another Super Bowl, but to retire with the kind of, like, elegance that he's going to retire with is kind of unheard of. Like, guys don't do that. Like, usually guys last too long.
Well, yeah, and to put it in a more morbid, like, idea about it is, I would use the example of, having a grandparent that you see suffering with Alzheimer's or dementia. The last memories you have of that person is their decline and their inability to carry a conversation, or like their body withering away. And yet, I mean, it's a weird comparison, but Tom Brady, we're not going to see that. The last memories that people that love football get to see of the greatest of all time, not only at the quarterback position, but perhaps in the entire NFL. His arm was as strong as ever. He was still chucking it 50 yards down the field, and
one of his best seasons ever. He played like an MVP. Very easily could have won
like, MVP. And he just continually played like he was in his prime his entire career. So we don't have this memory like we did with Rivers and Peyton Manning and Roethlisberger and so. Yeah, Brees, like all these other great quarterbacks whose arms were just like, ugh. Even Brett Favre. Favre was better, but it wasn't It
But
was
he
not.
even came back and then threw some stupid interception over the middle at the end of it. Like things like that. Like you remember Favre, he got beat up like crazy. Like, yeah, you remember Favre as a warrior, and you're always gonna remember that. Awesome that he came back and was like, it was kind of cool, right? It was really cool, actually.
Yeah.
But like you're still just gonna kind of remember a decline, right? You're gonna
Yeah.
remember a downfall. With Brady, I mean, yeah, cool. They lost in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
and that's the thing with
whatever.
Miguel.
Like,
That's what we're dealing
deal.
with. Tigers fans are dealing with Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah, he stinks.
We
He's
loved
no good.
him. Thank you for everything you've done. This is the
Yeah.
memories that I want to cherish about my grandparents in that scenario. And now we get to see him, struggling to hit 240. He's maybe hitting 12 homers a year now. It's like this is not the Miguel Cabrera that I loved.
Right.
Like,
And now a lot of people, a lot
memories.
of young fans are going to remember Miguel Cabrera as a 240, 15 home run guy. You know what I mean? And who's
Yeah,
not
just an old man that can't play baseball anymore.
that's
Doesn't even
not
play
even good.
defense to make the crazy defensive plays that he used to make at third base and first base. Like, it's done.
It's just like these guys just wither away as they go on and on and on.
I mean, Father Time is undefeated, but it never seemed to be that way with Tom Brady. We're never going to see the decline of Father Time with Tom Brady, and I think that's exactly how you want to remember the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm. John Elway was the same way. He went out on top. He's done.
A lot of people said he retired too early. I still say Tom Brady. Like, if I made a list of players that retired too early, Tom Brady's first, and I'm going to put John Elway probably in that top 10. And
Barry Sanders.
You also get Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, Patrick Willis, Luke Kuechly, Andrew Luck. Names kind of like that fall through, but Jake Plummer possibly even. But I just it's just crazy to think of some of these players that actually were able to kind of go out on top, and that's why for a while John Elway was considered one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, because the last memories we have of John Elway are still him slinging the crap out of the ball.
Right. The crazy thing is most people like Elway, probably Roger Staubach, the same way too. Those guys don't. You remember those guys like that, and you remember them as some of the greatest. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Andrew Luck. Like, you remember some high level football from him, but he's not going to be remembered as one of the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
You remember him as a elite NFL quarterback for like 7 or 8 years. That's what you're going to remember. That's all you're going to remember. You're not going to remember greatest of all time. You're not going to remember any of that, right? Yeah. You're going to remember really, really good NFL quarterback for maybe like just under a decade. You're going to remember Tom Brady as the greatest in the sport for 22 years.
Yep.
Never
skipped a beat. Never
missed. Yep. Just got better, if anything, right? Got better as we went along. That's insane. You don't see that in any sport ever. You don't see it. And most guys, I mean, this was kind of the talk the last 3-4 years with Brady. It's like, okay, when is it going to catch up to him? When is it going to stop? When's Father Time going to win? When is he going to get hurt again? Because remember, he blew out the knee 1 year. And that was kind of like the only time where it was like, ooh, yikes, he got hurt, when is that kind of everything kind of catch up to him? And he just kept proving him wrong over and over and over again. I think that's what I'm going to remember. And I'm going to remember him as like, this is a guy who could still play, right now. He could come back next year and still be top 5 NFL quarterback and put it all together. Like, that's how good he is. And a guy, you look at the top athletes ever in any sport, the Jordans, Kobe, Gretzky, Tom Brady, baseball.
Floyd Mayweather.
I guess, but baseball's a little different. But even look at, like a Bonds to an extent. I mean, I know that steroids are things, but like, the top athletes ever from a preparedness standpoint, like just legendarily prepared. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady. Those are the top 3 for me, by far. Like to the point of stupidity, the preparation that those guys underwent and put themselves through, and the practice habits, and the insanity that they're all wired the same. Every single one of those guys is wired the same. Like, you listen to Michael Jordan talk, and when he's actually like open and honest in an interview, like, he was a freak in practice. Kobe Bryant would show up at the gym every day at like 2 a.m. and would be there all day long and just didn't care. Like, he was there first there, last to leave, and he was going to outwork you. Tom Brady, yeah, I mean, physically gifted, certainly. All the 3 of those guys physically gifted. But there's been more physically gifted basketball players than Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And there's been way more physically gifted quarterbacks than Tom Brady, but he out-prepared everybody. And he'll tell you that too. He would tell you, I was more prepared than everybody.
It started out with that chip on the shoulder being 199 in the year 2000 NFL draft. And
started out with a chip on his shoulder when he wasn't the starting quarterback at Michigan.
You can argue that too. Yeah. People always doubted him for
I promise you, he was doubted from the beginning, but he knew he was good, right? But he also knew, but he even said, like, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, he gave an interview. He's like, man, I'll watch film of me now, and I still sometimes think I'm not any good. You know, a guy who's able to look at himself, but playing an MVP level and say, man, I suck.
I still need improvements.
I need to get better. Yeah. I need to get better. If I don't get better and somebody else is going to take my job, that's what he was always worried about. Like he said, he goes at Michigan, like, it was especially his senior year when Henson was there and like they're splitting time. He goes, if I sucked at Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday practice, I wasn't going to play on Saturday. Like I knew I couldn't suck. Same thing in New England early. You know, like if I sucked, like, I mean, there was the eggs weren't all in the Tom Brady basket not until he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he had to work behind Drew Bledsoe. Like you're going to have to work your tail off to get in.
Exactly. So the guy, I'm going to remember him for his crazy work
ethic. Yeah.
I know some people are gonna point to all like the deflate gate and spy gate and all that stuff like that.
But those are the same people that deflate what Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens did as players. Like those guys were good before they did even anything illegal. Like
exactly. To me, Tom Brady, like I don't even care if he had anything to do with any of that. To me, the guy is on an elite level
because he proved he can do it without it. That's the same thing.
Right. He's on an elite level from an athletic standpoint, from his mental game that you can't. I mean, that's just rare. You see it, you know, once or twice a generation, maybe once a generation. All the sports, you see something to that level. You know, I don't think. I'm not sure. I know like the game is different and passing is more. You know, just Mahomes is putting up these crazy numbers. All these quarterbacks putting up crazy numbers now. I still don't think they're going to beat most of those records. I really don't. Like the longevity is what's going to put them ahead of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have to play at least 20 years and still it has to maintain the league has to maintain itself as a passing league. And Tom Brady played himself through like 3 different changes where it was a run first league, it was a pass first league, it was a run first league, and he played through all of those and still found success.
Yep. Yeah, the
league changes all the time, and the quarterback has to be able to adapt to different schemes.
Exactly, and he was able to do that. And I'm going to remember him as the greatest of all time, just for his period. I mean, just you knew what he was going to be more prepared than you every time on
I mean, even towards the end. I mean, he used to be. It was him and Peyton Manning, 1 and 2 best quarterbacks each year, and then overall he'd still get the dubs. And then even at the end, where maybe his performance. Like people always kept pushing him down that list a little bit as best active quarterbacks, maybe as low as even 8th best quarterback some years, and he would still put up those MVP numbers. So it's like you could never count him out.
I think at the beginning of the year, like this year, even everybody's like, "Oh, he may be top 10," and I'm like, I mean, I'm telling you guys, like
there was never a year he wasn't.
I'm like, just don't doubt this guy, guys. Like he is. I mean, I could tell you if he was determined, he could go out there and have an MVP type season next year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like he's got a lot going on in his life. He's fine. Like he owns multiple businesses.
His wife still makes more money than him. Yeah, he's good.
He's gonna be okay, right? But he obviously has.
We don't have to start a GoFundMe for Tom Brady. It's all right.
We're gonna be fine. He's gonna be okay. But I don't think he's not gonna go into broadcasting. It's not going to be
at least not for. I think he's going to do as much family time as possible in the next 5 years.
You're not going to see the guy. I think. I mean, other than like the occasional, like probably media.
Peyton Manning and Eli Manning might get him on every once in a while, but I think
that type of thing. You might see him on doing that. You might see him, at games with his kids and wife or something. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to see him, in my opinion. I think he's going to be.
He's going to try to stay low.
I think he's going to be out of the spotlight, other than maybe some like endorsement things that he's doing. He's doing some NIL stuff with Michigan players and college players and stuff like that. So you might see some of that. But
you might take Brett Favre's place in Levi jeans. No, I'm just kidding.
I couldn't see that one.
I don't. He's not. He doesn't strike me as a Levi jeans kind of guy.
No, I don't think so. But I just think he's gonna just kind of step away. And you know what?
No, I'm with you.
Gracefully, and that's Most guys can't do that. So that's what I'm gonna remember. I'm gonna remember a guy who went out on top when most guys can't. So incredible.
Yeah.
The misinformation part, though, I guess we kind of went on a tangent about Brady there, but the misinformation part, yeah. Whatever about the Schefter Brady stuff. I mean, I think most people kind of. I'm not really even calling out Schefter necessarily because I think he's well sourced. Like I think he knows. I think he's well respected. Well, Brady didn't throw him under the bus and like just crap all over him. So because I think it was in good faith. Schefter putting that out there. But there is a pandemic, an epidemic of misinformation and people trying to be first reporting things throughout all of sports, probably all of media. Definitely throughout all of media, but we'll just talk about sports. So throughout all of sports. And people who don't even like know what they're talking about will hear something from a message board somewhere or from somewhere and just throw it out there as fact without even knowing what they're talking about. Hearing from somebody like, you heard from who? You know what I mean? Like
taxi driver in the city.
Yeah, nobody checks their sources, right? Nobody's actually checking on anything, and they just want to be first. And it's just I think to me, it's causing fiascos like this Harbaugh thing. It didn't need to be like this, it was always going to be an issue for Michigan, but it didn't need to be this blown up. Everybody's got an opinion about everything because of something they heard today, something new they heard today about the situation. People just need to let things play out,
I mean, this has been going on a while. I mean, even before Matt Patricia was hired, I remember in local Detroit, they're saying, I just heard from a source that, Mike Vrabel is making an appearance, and it looks like the Lions may be interested in hiring Mike Vrabel as a head coach.
Right.
I think the Lions were one of the first ones to hire a coach that year, and Matt Patricia was the name.
Right.
And so they could have had Mike Vrabel because Mike Vrabel was still hired after him. Right. And it turned out that source ended up being, it was like a taxi driver for that guy. And I'm like, all right, these guys are reaching.
Yeah, everybody's reaching, but everyone wants to be first. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like if you're first, you get recognition. There's probably some cash value somehow of being first, right? Because somebody's going to pay you as they reference your source or whatever, reference you as the source or whatever. But I mean, come on, guys. Like, you just look stupid. The problem is there's nobody putting these people who are just throwing this stuff out there. There's no repercussions for being wrong, right?
Yeah, people still follow them. They just make fun of them more.
Right. There's no repercussions for being wrong about any of this stuff. Or people will throw out information so vaguely to where, like, they could just be interpreted right or wrong in the end anyway. And it's like, come on, like either.
I remember when libel was an actual crime, and now it's not. It's just it used to be if you publish news like that, you could get incriminated. So
right, and now it doesn't matter.
It's like expected and everything. So
and you have to sit there and you have to take everything anybody says with a grain of salt, right? I mean,
until it actually comes from the butcher's mouth.
It actually comes from the actual source, from the person who's making the decision, right? Mm-hmm. So again, that's why even with this stuff, which I like we've said, we trust Ballas as a guy who knows what he's talking about, and he's been pretty careful with everything that I've read from him, and that's why we even brought up Harbaugh tonight, is saying he's probably gone, but. That's why even tonight I was like, hey, like we'll wait for sure. I'm not going to really speculate on replacements until it's a for sure thing, because you never know. And you never, you don't really know what everybody's sources are. And they're not going to name their sources because that's.
Yeah, I mean, they are for sure. Like we for sure know as much that Harbaugh did go up to Minneapolis. What we don't know is that interview could have went that could have went really poorly, and Harbaugh's like, yeah, no
he's
thanks.
He's going tomorrow. We know he's going there tomorrow.
Yep.
So the word on the street is, they have an offer already verbally offered him, and like he's going to sign it. Basically, that's the word on the street. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. He might say no. I actually, I've changed my mind, or you never know. So, I think to me, like. the good thing about information is awesome. People pay for it. You know, you pay money to get on these message boards that have insiders or whatever. You know, people pay for information, and it's awesome. And I think it's cool for fans of fan bases, whether it be NFL, college, any sport, whatever, to be able to have that inside information, pay for it. And I think it's cool. It brings fan bases together, and it's a cool feature of things, right? To see that. At the same time, I mean, I could probably go on there and say some things that end up coming true, and guess, and then I could probably go on message boards and pretend I'm an insider, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually some people would probably believe me. You know what I mean? So you just have to be really careful when you're out there gathering your information on different things. On Twitter, people get their information on Twitter, their news on Twitter. Twitter's cool. Twitter's a resource. It's a good way to get information quickly, but you have to be careful how you're getting, like what you're gaining from that, because I think most of the stuff you hear out there is garbage. I've always said though, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. So if there's a lot of stuff on something, then there's probably a portion of that, or there's probably something to a rumor or something.
Deshaun Watson.
Right. But if you see one guy, some random dude with 20 followers tweeting out something, you probably should just be careful about accepting that.
It's a little sus there. Yeah.
So I think that's just a problem overall in sports and in media in general. And I think it's just annoying. And it comes to light every year around this time with coaching searches and rumors, and it just gets annoying.
This is the longest filling coaching vacancies in the NFL that was taken. It's never gone beyond this. Granted, they added an extra week of the regular season, so that's part of it. But
yeah, part of it's probably the Harbaugh stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, it probably is. And maybe part of it, some of these teams are I don't know. Some of these teams are maybe worried about the Rooney stuff. It's possible.
Yep.
I mean, again, I think that's a problem. Like, if you want more minority head coaches, make sure there's more minority candidates. That's how you do it. Because you know what? Owners eventually aren't going to be stupid, and they're going to realize, look, I'm just going to hire the best coach for the job, and we're going to move on from there. So that's my answer to it. So